Yes, my name is Mark Daniels, and I am the Director of New Media Scotland. I'm based where the big E is over here, in Edinburgh. So New Media Scotland is the national development agency fostering artist and audience engagement with all forms of new media practice. Established in 1999. It is the most plastic of art forms. The parameters change from day to day, and we've had to evolve along with our art form, which is always a challenge. It's always a challenge to the people that fund us as well, because they're never quite sure what we're going to do next. So in 2000, however, a rival to New Media Scotland was established, Alt-W, which I only recently found out actually stands for Alternative Web, which is why we never make reference to it. So the Alt-W Fund, and I'm going to read this one out because it's so initiated by Scottish Screen in 2000, the Alt-W Fund is for practitioners based in Scotland to make and develop new artworks, devices, and creative applications that challenge the notions of what new media creativity can be. The fund supports artists to explore experimental and interactive practice, make use of technology as both medium and message, and recognize the changing role that digital culture has in our society. So principally, Alt-W was essentially looking at the World Wide Web, the artistic use of the World Wide Web. And when I started in post in 2008, we'd supported around 60 web-based pieces of work. And at that point, the Alt-W Fund had been merged with New Media Scotland, so it became under my wing. But there'd never been a retrospective of work that we had commissioned. And that's always a bit of a challenge, because essentially you're looking at work which people can actually experience at home rather than necessarily in a museum or a gallery context. So what do you do? So this is the Centre for Contemporary Art in Glasgow. And the exhibition Alt-W New Directions in Scottish Digital Culture opened in August of 2008. So the problem with the web-based pieces of work was that we had to resolve it by having website of the day. Come to the gallery to see website of the day. Of course, we wouldn't tell anyone what the website of the day was going to be. They had no excuse not to come to the gallery. But on the right-hand wall there, you'll see a piece of work called Madam I by Beverly Hood, which originally was a web-based piece of work, but we remediated it. So it became a short video for mobile phone and was actually pushed by Bluetooth to the audience as they were coming in. So as they walked past through the door on the right-hand side, the Bluetooth module would say to their phone, "Do you want to receive Madam I?" which seemed to be the cutting edge of things to do in 2008. But when it came to the main gallery, we actually had to ask the artists, so some of them to actually revisit their web-based practice and actually consider it from a gallery perspective. So the three pictures that you see on the wall here is a reinvention of Sunbed City by Mandy McIntosh. The tower block to the right actually contains a flash animation piece called The Deviant Possession of Christine Shaw by Donna Leishman. We'd taken the architectural types from that piece of work and actually made them physical, made them material, and the audience actually had to go inside that to experience the work itself. From a curatorial perspective, however, we were aware that the impact of receiving an Alt-W award meant that the practice of the artist was changing. So our curatorial policy, and that still continues to this day, is we're interested in the work that we have commissioned, but also the work that has been produced subsequently. So in the distance here, there's a piece of work which we didn't commission, but had been produced after the artist had received an Alt-W award. Equally here, this is Blow Up by Simon Biggs and Sue Hawksley, which is a dance piece which actually all the audience walked onto the stage as they came into the gallery. So they became performers. The work actually magnifies static parts of your body. It makes them much, much larger in the image that you see on the right-hand side. Now, in the distance, you'll see a sort of ghostly image, which is of the Fallen Oak, which was a Royal Navy vessel which was sunk by the Germans during the Second World War off Scapa Flow. Now, from a museum perspective, what was interesting about this was that the artists choose to use game technology to visualize the ship. Now, at that time, that really hadn't been done. So the notion of us supporting artists to actually develop this kind of technology was very important for the Alt W Fund. But this also marked a particular sort of watershed for us, because after 60 web-based pieces of work, kind of enough was enough. And times had changed. We were seeing hack culture coming along, mega culture coming along. Even things like steampunk, for example, were being prevalent, and it's just things were becoming more physical. The Internet of Things was evolving as well. So I rewrote the guidelines back in 2008, and we were holding application surgeries all the way through this exhibition period at the CCA. And we met a group of artists called the Found Collective, which consists of Simon Kirby, Tommy Perman, and Ziggy Campbell. And they made a proposal. And what's nice about the Alt W Fund is that people get answers really quick. You don't wait 3 months for an answer. You might get an answer in 10 days. So they proposed a piece of work called Cyberphon. Now, Cyberphon is a unique word. It did not exist before July of 2009 in the public domain. And the reason for that was that the artist wished to create an autonomous emotional robot band. Or a singing wardrobe, as quite a lot of people refer to it. So Cyberphon is, it Googles itself every 15 seconds to see how popular it is. This affects its emotional state, which affects its playing style. So Cyberphon is essentially neurotic. It was designed to hold up a mirror to social media practice in 2009, which is something quite specific, because we were all quite neurotic about social media at that particular point in time. So it knows whether or not a reference to itself is positive or negative. It also understands the cumulative effect of positive and negative comments as well. So if you have to imagine that on its birthday, it gets lots of happy birthday messages. It gets very, very happy. The next day, it gets no messages. It gets very, very sad. So Cyberphon even now still doesn't quite understand the whole notion of this is your birthday, it's a special day, that's why you have that many messages today. But at its heart, it's going to start playing you a tune. Now, this was a physical experience. So this was in my laboratory in Edinburgh at the School of Informatics. And the audience had to approach Cyberphon for Cyberphon to play a tune. So there's actually a motion sensor underneath Cyberphon's skirt, and that will trigger the music. So there are 25 antique instruments and 60 robotic actuators inside, and they will play a tune. So essentially it's a music player, and the artist composed music which reflected each emotional state. Obviously, super, super popular. And I'm just going to show you a short clip from the BBC Culture Show, which will enable you to hear Cyberphon for the first time, hopefully.
First, the major art exhibition in the city this year is the Discovery of Spain at the Royal Scottish Academy. But the art festival has a lot more than that. Here's Alistair Sook to see what else the city's galleries have to offer.
This is the bizarre but equally very compelling Cyberphon. It looks like an antique wardrobe, but actually it's hooked up to the internet, and it's been given its own personality by the artists who've built it. At its heart, you've got this emotion barometer, and this reflects the amount of publicity that the wardrobe's actually getting online. So it has lots of followers on Facebook and Twitter, and if people are into it, then the mood of the wardrobe becomes rapturous and deliriously happy, and all these instruments start to play music. If it's not getting the publicity it thinks it deserves, though, it gets rather moody and depressed. And I guess it's a big commentary on the way that Facebook, Twitter and other websites like that are really changing the way that lots of people are. At the moment, it's entirely rapturous. I like to think that it likes me and I'm standing next to it, but it could just be turned off.
So quick. So the emotion meter in the middle there. So states of desolation up to heights of delirium. Individual pieces of music written for each state, about 3. Once it's gone through those 3 pieces of music, it would then go into its standard repertoire. It was temperamental, as divas are. The keyboard particularly used to stick. It has a tendency to snore as well when it was sleeping. So Cyberphone had some functionality reduced to stop me from going insane. Because I was looking after Cyberphone all the time and I would have to do the show. But it became something which was it was a destination artwork. People were coming specifically to the gallery to see Cyberphone and nothing else. And you know, the mums would bring their children in their prams, and it was a lovely thing. In recognition, it won a BAFTA for Best Interactive in 2009. So this is our equivalent of an Oscar, essentially. It is the only such device to win a BAFTA. And as a band, it had merchandise. It still has merchandise. You can get an Indifference t-shirt if you like. You can get one for every other emotion too. But the key thing here is that Cyberphone would update its social media presence automatically. So as much as it's mining the World Wide Web for information, it's also providing that too. So it would update its own Facebook, its own Twitter with an I am feeling indifference. And the work continued to be on display for a longer period than we initially expected, and back in 2011 it also reappeared as part of a major international device art show. And this is its last day in 2011. Now, I was given the kill codes. So if you imagine, anyone familiar with 2001: A Space Odyssey, when HAL has its functionality reduced, it starts to sing Daisy Daisy very slowly. Cyberphone has the same thing as well. So I was given a specific kill code to tweet. You killed it by Twitter. Where Cyberphone would actually start to have its functionality reduced, and it would start to sing Daisy Daisy, and it would get slower and slower. Most people don't quite realize what that means, but this is the day that Cyberphone was switched off in 2011. So you can see here that, you know, people were commenting. Cyberphone never actually commented back. So, you know, in terms of the general rules of managing social media presence with your audiences, it was a bit bad from that perspective. But however, it was all automatic from its side of things. So I do encourage you. You can follow Cyberphone on Twitter and Facebook if you like. However, Cyberphone is currently not switched on. So this is where we go on to the next part of the story. So in 2012, Alt-W supported a show called Alt-W Shortcuts with the Travelling Gallery. Now, this is a travelling gallery which goes around Scotland, so this is a mobile museum, essentially. And very, very popular. The audience is around 75% young people, so they do actually really appreciate digital practice. And every 4 years now, it's like our Olympic project, we do a show with the Travelling Gallery. But at that time, off the back of showing in Cyberphone at InSpace at the School of Informatics, the National Museum of Scotland were interested in loaning us work for which we could actually utilize as part of our programming. So I got to visit the collection stores in Granton, which is, you know, massive, as we all know. Most museums, 95% of their collections are still in storage. They were super willing to actually give us anything that we wanted. As long as they could give us at least 6 months worth of notice, they would actually give us the object. It's like, can I have the elephant? Can I have the space rocket? Yes, yes, yes. Just give us 6 months and we'll have it. It's not a problem. But this is one of those situations where in the back of the taxi with the keeper of art and design, and I sort of said, so, would you like a Cyberphone? And next thing we know is that the National Museum of Scotland acquire Cyberphone. So it's accessioned into the permanent collection in 2013 as part of the Edinburgh International Festival. Now, National Museum of Scotland is 133 years older than New Media Scotland, and this is the first time that they've acquired such a piece of work. And the key thing is, when they tend to acquire a piece of technology, they don't tend to worry about whether or not they're working or not. Now, it's there, it's a TV, it's John Logie Baird, it's a TV, it doesn't work, it's fine, it doesn't, no. But however, Cyberphone needs to work. They're acquiring a piece of artisan electronica. So I'm very conscious, because I'm the one person who spent a long, long time with Cyberphone about actually how to keep Cyberphone in good nick. So not only did they acquire Cyberphone, they acquired its social media accounts as well. So therefore, the museum has acquired its Facebook profile and all of the others as well. And this is a short video shot for the International Festival in 2013. And the gentleman speaking here is Simon Kirby from the Found Collective.
Back in 2008, myself, Tommy Perman and Ziggy Campbell were in a porter cabin out at New Haven, messing around with pieces of junk shop instruments and strange objects that we'd found, fitting robotic components to them. And the reason we were doing this was because we were interested in the state of social media at the time. And we had this idea, what would happen if we built a 21st century equivalent of player piano? So what would it be like? And we realized it would be obsessed with its own online popularity, just like we were at that time. So what Cyberphone does is every 15 seconds it Googles itself, it checks its online stats on Facebook, Twitter, MySpace and all these other sites. And if it feels it's popular, if people are following it and liking it, then it's happier and it plays more upbeat music. If it feels like it's being neglected, then it sinks back down into depression and plays a more depressing tune. One of the things I think is quite amusing is Cyberphone actually gives stuff back to its fans. It writes to Twitter and Facebook and says what its mood is. This morning it tweeted that it was feeling gloom, and people were writing back and saying, cheer up Cyberphone, or stop being such a diva Cyberphone. And of course those responses, they themselves changed the mood of the piece. The funny thing about Cyberphone is that it very quickly seemed to take on a personality of its own, and our own emotions towards it changed. So to start with, we were protective, and then we started to realize that when people wrote about it, they were writing about Cyberphone. They weren't writing about us as artists. And its fame quickly overshadowed ours. We would never have imagined that we'd end up with this going into the international festival and being housed in the National Museum of Scotland.
I think over the past few years, Jonathan Mills and I have been looking at ways in which the National Museum, particularly since the redevelopment 2 years ago, and the festival can actually work together more closely. So this is just one of a number of projects that have come out of that collaboration. This museum has a huge range of collections covering life, the universe and everything in it. Now amongst these collections, some of the most important ones relate to science and technology and decorative art. So the Cyberphone really almost brings these collections together because it's both science and art, and it's also interactive, which means it's going to be hugely popular with our visitors.
It's a very cringe-making final shot there, however. So the Alt W Fund continued. Cyberphone resided at the National Museum of Scotland in a box for quite some years now, because that was back in 2013. So Alt W continues. This is Edinburgh College of Art. And in 2014, we had an exhibition, an Alt W exhibition again for the Art Festival. So Alt W has to support a lot of different practice. So here we've got examples of architecture, also games, just the reference to games before. This is actually a board game which we commissioned, and it's not part of any collections as such. It is RFID enabled, so it is a little bit digital, but by playing the game, it actually affects a response inside the box, and that's inside the box. Look through the hole. Equally, also taking data and actually making it physical. So this is a project called Gadroon Baguette Cartouche by Callum Sterling, which takes data from Scotland, specific data from Scotland, so such as things like red squirrel populations, and turns them into architectural mouldings. Equally, we're supporting the development of new forms of hardware. So this is a project called Help Me Obi. It's a 3D video holography system. Also, again, continuing to hold up a mirror to social media practice. So this is a project called Front by Donald Leishman, which is a cautionary tale for social media use based on the Greek mythology of Daphne and Apollo. If you don't quite know what you're doing with your selfies, you will eventually look like this. She's still in there somewhere. But the key thing here is that we're getting more institutional connections made with respect to the work that we commissioned. And we're now at around 125 artists in our alumni. So this is the Royal Scottish Academy. And we were invited to curate a room at the Royal Scottish Academy. This is the most important venue in all Scotland, so it's amazing to have this. And this is the room that we curated, again, all work by Alt W alumni. This gets 15,000 visitors in 15,000 visitors in 10 days. So this was a phenomenal amount of people. And just, again, the curatorial methodology of showing work that we've commissioned and work that's been produced subsequently by our alumni. And in the distance there, you'll see the fallen oak has reappeared, so back from 2008, still relevant in 2014. This is a piece of work called Ink by In the Fields, who are really our preeminent media device art artists in Scotland. And then back to National Museum of Scotland. So in June of this year, 10 new galleries will reopen. These are the new Art and Design and Science and Technology galleries, and Cyberphone will be used as a bridging piece of work. So it will exist between the two galleries. I could not be more excited by this. I don't have any pictures, unfortunately, of the galleries. We haven't seen the designs yet, but we are in close contact with the curators to see exactly how they're doing this. They did manage to break Cyberphone when they moved it into the museum last time, so I'm always quite keen that they don't do that again. For us, moving forwards now, our focus is on architecture. We have a Festival of Architecture in Scotland this year, and we're working with the Travelling Gallery again. And this is situations where we're looking at things like parametric design, 360-degree video, GIF animation, amazingly enough, and also renewable energy too. What's interesting for us is that the new keeper of art and design is Javier Decteau from Louvre-Lens, who's just about to join National Museum of Scotland, which we feel is a quite impressive appointment, and I'm looking forward to actually meeting them to actually see whether or not, because when we commission work, so much work, actually it's lovely to think that some of it further work will now be accessioned into the permanent collection of the National Museum of Scotland. Thank you very much.